Hello, boys and girls. It's me, Mrs. Wilder, and I am here to go over your daily reading comprehension, week 4, day 1. All right, let's get started. Let me share my screen with you. Give me a moment, please. Okay, here we go. All right. You will notice at the top of the page in the right corner, it says week 4, day 1. Let me get my annotation ready to do that. That would be right here. Week 4, day 1. Let's start by reading the directions. Think about how the different kinds of salt are similar and different. So we're kind of comparing and contrasting. Comparing shows how things are alike. Contrasting shows how things are different. So that's compare and contrast. So let's read our story. Flavoring the globe. Most people are familiar with plain white table salt, but if you think that salt is just a bunch of tiny white crystals, you're mistaken. The common seasoning has many different colors and flavors. French sea salt comes from seawater. The larger grains and milder flavor of this salt make it a popular choice for meals. Some people even like to sprinkle it on chocolate cakes and cookies. Hawaiian sea salt, on the other hand, has a rosy color that comes from the clay in the region. The mellow flavor of the salt is perfect for pork dishes. Like Hawaiian sea salt, Australian river salt is also pink. Its color, however, comes from the algae in the groundwater. The soft pink flakes melt easily on warm foods. Mediterranean black lava salt resembles tiny cubes of coal. This salt is made by mixing sea salt from the Mediterranean Sea with charcoal from volcanic lava. The dark crystals, unlike the other salts mentioned, add a dramatic color contrast to baked potatoes. Sampling different salts is a wonderful way to travel the world without leaving home. Try sprinkling one of the many varieties of salt on your food and enjoy the unique flavor and texture. The first thing I'm going to do is come up and clear everything I've already drawn. And let's get into this story here. All right. Now, we have a strategy practice right here, and it says, how are the different kinds of salt mentioned in the passage similar, and how are they different? So I need to come up here and get my drawing tool so I can write on my lines. So let's go up and look back and forth. Let's see how they are different and how they are alike. Okay. The French sea salt comes from seawater. The Hawaiian sea salt comes from clay in the region. Like Hawaiian sea salt, Australian river salt is also pink. Its color, however, comes from algae and groundwater. And the Mediterranean black lava salt resembles tiny cubes of coal, and that's made by mixing sea salt from the Mediterranean Sea. So really, we have a lot to contrast here. So we could write, first of all, let's see what's the same. So they all of the salts come from different places. I guess this is how they are different, sorry. Come from different, oh, I spelled that wrong. Different places. Some from the sea, 1 from clay, 1 from cubes of coal, so that's one way they're different. They come from different places. So how are they alike? Let's find one way in which they're alike. Let's see. Some are sprinkled on chocolate cakes and cookies. One's good for pork dishes. One's good for baked potatoes. One melts easily on warm foods. So I think how they're alike is possibly they are all used to flavor food, to flavor food. But they're different in that they flavor different kinds of food. So we can say, but flavor different foods. Okay, so that's one way that we can talk about comparing and contrasting are different kinds of sea salt. Now, there's not just one way to do this, boys and girls. There are many different things I could have compared and contrasted. But what I chose is I found the different places that they come from. But one thing they all have in common is they're all used to flavor food. So I'm going to clear that. And I'm going to go back to my mouse. And we're going to go down to our questions. And we have 4 questions here. So this part of the worksheet tells us to read each question, fill in the bubble next to the correct answer. Let's look at number 1. What makes French sea salt popular? Now, I could just sit here and think, what do I think it is? I could do that. I could guess. Or a better option would be to first read my 4 answer choices, then go back to my passage and see which answer I think works best. So number 1, what makes French sea salt popular? A, the dark color, B, the fine grains, C, a chocolate flavor, or D, a mild taste. So let me go back to my passage. And I see right here that I have the sea salt. French sea salt comes from seawater. The larger grains and milder flavor of this salt make it a popular choice for meals. Some people even like to sprinkle it on chocolate cakes and cookies. So let's go back to my answer choices. What makes French sea salt popular? A dark color? Well, I don't think it talks about a dark color. The fine grains? Well, here it talks about the larger grains, so it's not fine grains. See, a chocolate flavor? Well, it talks about chocolate, but it doesn't say anything about chocolate flavor. It says some people like to sprinkle it on chocolate cakes and cookies. Or D, a mild taste. Does it talk about a mild taste? The larger grains and milder flavor of the salt make it a popular choice for meals. So I think the best answer for our question is letter D, a mild taste. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill that in. All right, so we have finished number 1. Let's move on to number 2. What causes the rosy color of Hawaiian sea salt? So let's go back to our passage. Oh, I almost forgot to read our answer choices. We have 4 answer choices. A, the regional clay. B, algae from underground water. C, volcanic lava. Or D, pork. So what causes the rosy color of Hawaiian sea salt? Let's go back and look at our passage for the part that talks about Hawaiian sea salt. Well, look, it's right here. Hawaiian sea salt, on the other hand, has a rosy color that comes from the clay in the region. The mellow flavor of the salt is perfect for pork dishes. So let's go back down to our number 2. What causes the rosy color of Hawaiian sea salt? Well, the regional clay. Where does it say the Hawaiian sea salt comes from? It says it comes from the clay. So let's mark Well, let's look at our other choices. Algae from underground water, volcanic lava, or pork. But I think our best answer for this one, because it says it right there in the passage, comes from the regional clay. So this is D. Let me erase this down here. Come back up and pick this up. All right. Now let's go over to number 3. Which statement is an opinion? Now we're going to have to know the difference between a fact and an opinion. A fact is something that we can prove from our passage. An opinion, on the other hand, is something that somebody thinks may be true, or something one person likes but not necessarily everybody else does. So let's read our 4 answer choices. A, most people are familiar with plain white table salt. B, French sea salt comes from seawater. C, Australian river salt is pink. And D, sampling different salts is a wonderful way to travel the world without leaving home. All right, let's go back. Let's start with A. Most people are familiar with plain white table salt. Well, let's go back to our story. And it says, oh, well, looky there. It says right there in the first paragraph, most people are familiar with plain white table salt. So we know that our letter A is a fact because we can prove it here in our story. So let's go on to B. So we know that's not an opinion. French sea salt comes from seawater. So let's go back to our passage. Right here, it talks about the French sea salt comes from seawater. So look at that. B, French sea salt comes from seawater. And up here it says French sea salt comes from seawater. So that's not an opinion. We can prove that in our story as well. So C, Australian river salt is pink. So let's go back to our story and look for the Australian river salt, and that's right here. And it says the Australian river salt is also pink. Well, down here in our answer choice, it says Australian river salt is pink. So we know that's a fact. We can prove that in our story. Let's look at D. Sampling different salts is a wonderful way to travel the world without leaving home. Now that sounds like an opinion to me, because not everybody likes to travel, and maybe not everyone likes salt either. So I think our answer for an opinion on this one is probably D. So let's catch these up. 1 is D, 2 is A, 3 is D, and now we only have 1 more to do. So here we go. How are Australian and Hawaiian salts similar? A, both melt easily. B, both come from the sea. C, both are pink. D, both have large grains. So we're going to look at Australian and Hawaiian salts. So let's go back to our passage. Right here we have the Hawaiian salt, on the other hand, has a rosy color that comes from the clay in the region. Well, let's look at the Australian river salt. Like Hawaiian sea salt, Australian river salt is also pink. I think I remember one of our answers talking about pink. Let's go back and look. If we go back to our answer choices, we see both melt easily, both come from the sea. Oh, there it is, both are pink. So let's go ahead and mark that. All right, boys and girls, that is the, those are the answers for week 4, day 1 of the daily reading comprehension. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I will see you guys back here later. Can't believe that just happened.